This is Ryan Abraham and Dan Weber, USCFootball.com Instant Analysis here on Howard Jones Field. And Dan, a focus today from Clay Helton, what he said is third downs and pass rush, trying to slow down this really potent Arizona offense.
Especially on the ground, I think they're really convinced that Rich Rod's figured out a way to run the ball out of the kind of the pro spread passing offense, and they're 265 yards a game on the ground. So I think they've got them all fired up, but I think they're building on the two interceptions last week, both caused by somebody getting into the quarterback's face, making him throw the ball a little bit early. And I think they're really, convincing these guys that, you may not take him down, you may not, but if you can get there, and make him throw the ball a little sooner than he wants to, you've got guys like, Saturday Cow, Dorian Kevon are going to maybe, pick him off. And so I think that was I like the way they're building on, successes and showing, if you do this, this is what happens. And I think especially it's happened on defense.
For the defense, for the focus today, we got to speak to a lot of defensive players and coaches. And this Arizona offense was ranked number 1 in the Pac-12 until they only put up 3 points against Washington last week. Using 2 quarterbacks, they look to be under disarray, but I think this team is preparing for them to give their best shot to USC.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, you got to think that they're going to come in and play like they have most of the year, and you can't look at last week's game. They're certainly not talking about them like that. So they've got their attention, and I think the common thread when you talk to this USC defense is everybody do your job, do it right, get the assignment down, don't try to do somebody else's job. You get your job done right, we'll get our job done right. I mean, the secondary guys are saying they're supporting the run so much better because the front seven are doing what they're supposed to do, and so they have the fit. They really fit, on when they're coming up and tackling, and that's one of the things you've noticed is the secondary has done such a better job tackling against the run, and they say, well, that's because front guys are, much more physical. Delvon was talking about how hard they've been working on beating the double team and things like that. And if they get that job done, if the linebackers are kind of in place, it makes it much easier for the secondary to come up and make tackles. And I thought they did a really good job against Cal.
Maybe get an injury update, some of the players. We didn't see Zach Banner today, Juju Smith, Cameron Smith, and Darius Rogers. Maybe some updates on those guys.
Zach was at his grandfather died, so he was gone today. He'll be back tonight to be with the family. Juju was here, and he's got a hard cast on. It's basically a post-surgical cast for a day, and then till tomorrow. Then he'll get a soft cast on it. I think there are people here who think, and people who are working with him that think he might play. I mean, they're not saying that he won't. Today, he basically he did a few things like when they were doing a ball security drill, he was punching. The guy they would catch it, jump over a dummy, and then they'd get punched. Well, Juju with his left hand was doing the punching, and he was out here, in pads and out here, standing around with his wide receiver guys, but they don't let him do anything today. But the rest of the players, when you talk to them about him, say they will not be surprised if he plays.
Yeah.
And Clay said that, said it might not look like it today, but the next couple of days, all of a sudden on Friday, he says, and Clay said, hey, he is Superman, so maybe he will. So I think the target is next week, but I think if he really, really comes around, knowing it's Juju, they're going to let him.
Yeah. And then Darius Rogers and Cameron Smith kind of took the second part of practice off with they got the hamstring injury, so they're kind of just being precautious with those guys. Precautious,
Yeah,
just precaution. Is that right? And one last, being cautious with those guys, not precautious. One last thing though, it was kind of interesting. A lot of the Pac-12 talk, Dan, about stealing signals and what Arizona State's been doing. We saw what Oregon was doing, putting up those sheets, and we got to talk to Clay Helton about that. I thought it was interesting what he had to say.
Yeah, if Arizona State's stealing signals, it didn't work against USC. However, if Washington's stealing signals, so those are the two that the rumors are. As Clay said, it's not illegal. They've got multiple. I guess like a baseball the third base coach, where he's got an indicator, and it can change with every play in terms of which is the real signal following it. USC evidently does that same thing,
Okay.
where they have indicators that will tell you which is the live signal and which one isn't. So Clay said, if they're going up tempo, he said, I think even if you stole a signal, it might be really hard to get the communication in time for the defense to be able to benefit from it. And he said he thinks with their multiple indicators, it's probably pretty hard to steal their signals. But he said, it's legal, and if you want to go for it, go for it. But so he didn't appear too upset, and he's probably not going to put up the curtains on the sideline the way Oregon did.
Yeah. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up here. Wednesday practice as USC gets ready to take on Arizona. Saturday night in the Coliseum at 7:30 p.m. For Dan Weber, this is Ryan Abraham. Check out uscfootball.com for more.